Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the Film Club Podcast, where every month we deep dive into a different aspect of cinema, director, genres, actor, or franchises. It doesn't matter, because it's always fun at the Film Club. I'm Dean.
I'm Boo.
And this month we're going into the Mummy franchise.
We are.
And this week...
this week.
We're doing the last film of the original...
Trilogy.
Yeah, the original trilogy, The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, starring Brendan Fraser, Jet Li, Michelle Yeoh,
John Hannah. That one guy.
Ford, I think?
Some guy.
Yeah, and not Rachel Weisz.
No. Fake Evie. And I will be addressing her as Fake Evie.
She's a good actress, all right.
I'm not, knocking her acting skills, but she's Fake Evie. If you're trying to get me to believe that is, Rachel Weisz's Evie, I'm sorry, sir. I can't.
This is going to be a lovely episode. But let's get down to it, because this is pretty much the last film of the trilogy that we're going to be talking about, of The Mummy, Mummy Returns, and this one.
Yeah.
And I guess we can get it out of the way right now. Worst one in the trilogy?
Absolutely.
Like, by far?
By far.
Like, Mummy's Returns was not great, but at least it was, like, entertaining, and it had a vibe, and it was fun.
Yes.
This one did not have the vibe you were looking for?
I didn't laugh once.
Not once?
Not once.
Not even when Brendan Fraser's mugging towards the camera and the Yeti show up?
Not once. Not even when Jonathan was yelling at Rick to slap my ass because his ass was on fire. Not once.
I figured that would just kill you.
Nope.
Oh. So you're just gonna have a lovely time talking about this great film.
It's gonna be a rough one. It is. I don't have too many good things to say about this movie.
This is very rare. Usually I'm the pessimist.
You are, but I mean, I knew that this was going to be my reaction. I knew with the trailer back in, when did this movie come out?
I believe this came out in 2008.
Back in 2008, when I saw the trailer, I was like, ooh, I am never watching this. And for this podcast, I did. And wow, it was a doozy.
It is. But let me ask you, so 2008,
yes.
This is 7 years after, or 6 years after Mummy Returns.
Yeah, because that was 2001.
Yeah, 7 years after 2000, 6 or 7 years after The Mummy Returns. I'm going to get tongue-tied already. And I don't know about you, but were you hyped when you heard there was going to be a third Mummy movie?
Oh, yeah. When the rumors came out that there was going to be a third, I was totally stoked. I thought, okay, where are we going to go with the story next?
Mm-hmm.
And then I saw the trailer and I thought, oh, or I heard that they were going to go to ancient China. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, oh, okay, I really love the ancient, Egyptian culture. I'm like, all right, let's see how this strays. And then I saw that the cast changed, and I was like, okay. I'm out.
Because the cast changing, it's only that Maria Bello changes, or takes over Rachel Weisz's role as Evelyn, or Evie. And everyone else, like Oded Fehr and Arnold Vosloo, they just didn't reprise their roles. They just didn't come back. So was just the fact that Rachel Weisz wasn't coming back, was that enough to kill you for
That was enough.
That was enough.
That was enough.
Okay.
I was okay with, we're going to, a different continent. We're checking out different, lores. I was cool with that. But the fact that Evie wasn't there, I'm not there.
I guess, like, the starting question here, do you think that Maria Bello does well enough for what she's given? Do you think she's not the same, I feel she's not the same character, but she's giving it her best go. I
think she, she does a fine job for what she has to do in this movie, but she doesn't give me Evie. I'm not getting, this is something that Evie would have done. This is very much her own character, but the whole movie itself, it's very comical.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, the action-adventure with comedy in it. This is kind of slapstick.
Yeah, this is really apparent in, like, the first time we see Rick when he's,
trying to kill time learning how to fish.
Yeah, he's fly fishing in also, this is another thing. This is another 10-year time jump
So
from
we're
the
in
previous.
the 40s now.
Yeah, 1946. Rick is fly fishing in England, and he is comically bad at fly fishing. And like, you think of the first time you see Rick in the other movies, right? The first one, he is fighting for the French Foreign Legion, about to face down an army.
He's leading the Legion.
Yeah, and the second movie, they're going through this ancient tomb. It's the whole Raiders thing where, this movie opens with the ending of The Last Adventure.
And they're explorers, and we find out that Rick, was chosen by the gods to be, a protector.
Because, the second one got real mystical on us.
It got very mystical, and this one it's kind of like, we've retired, and let me see what I could learn in this, book of hobbies.
Yeah, and it's interesting where the movie decides to show you what they're up to by making it immediately comedic. I get what they're trying to do. They're like, they're on their way out. They're retired. They don't want to be adventurers no more. Even though Evie is like a writer now, writing about their adventures.
And it's like, yeah, as much as she wanted to be part of the Bembridge Scholars, and like I really couldn't see her going into, writing fantasy romance novels. I was like, really? This is what we're gonna turn Evie into?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I get what they're going for, but this feels like there should have been like 2 other movies before we get to this point, kind of thing.
Yeah, let alone when Rick and Evie finally land in China, it turns into Temple of Doom.
Yes, like very quickly turns into Temple of Doom, which is the whole, like, the Mummy franchise is the 90s or early 2000s response to the Indiana Jones franchise. And this is the worst aspects of like the Temple of Doom, Last Crusade, Crystal Skull, that whole era.
Because don't get me wrong, I love Temple of Doom. I love the Indiana Jones movies. I haven't seen Dial of Destiny yet. Kind of hearing, mixed reviews on that. But it's just, this movie just feels like they crammed so many random things into it that it doesn't feel authentic to itself.
It doesn't, it is a barely functional attempt at continuing a story that probably didn't need to be continued, honestly. It's the problem with like the first movie is so good that The Mummy Returns feels like, okay, we're retreading the same stuff we saw in the first movie. Why are we doing this? The third movie is we're continuing a story that, honestly, The Returns gave me, if I had any more questions about what they were doing, Returns did it.
I was, intrigued with the beginning of the movie when we're talking about the Emperor and how, he was running things and how, he wanted to, become immortal. All of that, and how the sorceress turns him and his army into basically clay. And how they tied that into actual history. I'm like, okay. This is cool.
You know what? Like, let's actually get into that, because the opening of the movie with the Emperor, where we actually get to see Jet Li
and Michelle
Yeoh, like 2 great actors, like actually performing, like, because spoiler alert, Jet Li isn't in 90% of this movie.
No, he I think was only there for weeks.
Maybe
it was a very short amount of time that he was able to be there for the movie.
Which that's gonna beg some questions at the end of this, but the opening of it is actually pretty decent. It's doing the same thing that they did with
the Mummy,
with the original Mummy, with Mummy Returns. It opens with, here's our villain and his ancient lore and all this other stuff. But with this one, instead of Imhotep being kind of this tragic kind of death where he's cursed, but he's cursed because he betrayed the Pharaoh for love, and the Scorpion King, turned bad. If you against the whole movie he was based in, he turned bad, but it was because his army was destroyed and he wanted revenge and heartbreak. And it's like, okay, they're kind of tragic, villains. But with this, the Dragon Emperor Jet Li is just a bastard.
Yeah, we never see, any cracks in him that, there's a reason why he is this angry and that he is this volatile. It's just, dude's ready to conquer the world.
Yeah, and there's no hint of, like, humanity to him. He is just maniacally evil.
Yeah.
Maybe not maniacally evil, but he is just, like, pure evil. And you have Michelle Yeoh playing the sorceress who, like, tricks him, curses him to be like, oh, now you and your entire army will be turned into clay warriors, and you will have to suffer eternal life as statues for the rest of eternity.
Which was really cool. because that ties into actual history.
Yeah, because this is not based 100%, but it's taken a lot of inspiration from the terracotta warriors that were found in, I think it was a Chinese tomb.
It was. I don't. I know I can't pronounce it, but it's from a dynasty that, and I know
we're not. This isn't a history podcast.
No. But that is a factual thing, and it's like I love that they added that. The fact that when they go into the temple, Alex and his team, it was rigged with booby traps, and that's very matter of fact. That was in the temples. That's a reason why it hasn't progressed too much, the discovery, with these terracotta soldiers, because it's still very much rigged with booby traps. So people, the explorers and the scientists, they have to be careful that they don't get shot with arrows or, hit with poison or whatever. So
a lot of the times it's like there's like false support beams. If you put any weight on it in the wrong direction, it'll knock the ceiling down on you. That's a lot of the times those what is it? If you ever hear of like, oh, these are the real life Indiana Jones and blah, blah, blah. Those are the booby traps they're seeing. Usually it's not dark traps in the walls, because those things are like, you only got to have them go off once and then you're good after that. Usually it's like, oh, well, this whole wall is going to cave in on me and it's going to seal it up forever.
But I mean, it's still very cool that, that was incorporated into the movie. But it's like, I felt like that beginning sequence was a lot more interesting than bringing in our characters.
Yeah, because, the whole thing with the opening, we get to see like cool badass Jet Li, we get to see Michelle Yeoh the sorceress, and right after that, that's where we get Rick and the fishing and him hating hating retirement. And we also see Evie is a writer and a different actress, and they do the whole reveal of her being a different actress, like you didn't see the poster, as this whole surprise, guys, Evie's changed. And
I mean, let alone, we have that, and then when they get hired on for another mission, we find out that they were spies.
Yes.
And it's like, what? Now we're dealing with spies?
Also, why wasn't that the movie where it's like, could you imagine, Rick and Evie, they're now World War II espionage spies who have to save the Spear of Destiny from Hitler or whatever by going into the tombs of whatever. Like, that would be an interesting sequel. A little, Last Crusade-y, but that would be interesting to follow up on. But that just makes, when they say that just puts imagination run wild, like, across the board for me. But the other thing is, right after we get the whole establishment of this is where they are now. Now we get to see where their son is, and Alex is following in his parents' footsteps. Even though he hates them?
Yeah, he hates his parents, which I hated that they wrote that into the story. But all of them still live in the UK, and he doesn't have a British accent anymore.
And this isn't like a thing where like, oh, well, what did he have? He never had a British accent. He had a thick British accent in Mummy Returns, and he was like 10. And I'm like, okay, so he's supposed to be like 20, 21 now. He'd still have an accent. Also, he wouldn't have this kind of slight Texas drawl he's got.
So weird.
And, I get it. They hired an actor who was just good for the role and could do the action and all this other stuff. But, like, bro, they couldn't have had him put on, like, a little bit of a British, like, accent or something instead of the twang he's got going on. But other than that, which is just a weird character inconsistency, he does actually pick up like the first action scene, or the first big action scene proper.
Yeah.
Sneaking into the tomb and
setting off the booby traps,
showing that he knows what he's doing, like his parents did, figuring out the puzzle, the feng shui. So I was like, okay, like you're a different kind of pulp hero, but you're still in the pulp hero vein. And we get the, Lynn,
who is his love interest, and she's also kind of like the Magi, where she's protecting and making sure that the Emperor stays encased.
Yeah, even though she's not doing it very well, because she let the whole dig site go through for like probably months.
Well, I mean, they also, don't really flesh that out well, because towards the end we figure out who Lynn really is. Should we spoil that now?
If you want to, we can save it for later when it comes up, but we can just spoil it now because it's pretty obvious. Like, what she is, because you're right, she's the Magi, and she's the daughter of
the sorceress and the general that the sorceress has
an affair with.
But I mean,
they're also immortal, by the way. This is we should point that out, that the sorceress and Lin are immortals.
But I mean, is it really an affair when the sorceress was never, promised to the emperor?
Well, it's the thing where the emperor's petty.
Oh yeah, and it's a thing where she actually did find love with the general. And it's just, oh, I couldn't have you? Well, you can't have him. And then you die too. And then it's just like, but then she lives and they become immortal and her daughter's immortal. But it's like, wouldn't they have more people, kind of like the Magi, to protect and make sure the Emperor never comes out?
It's the thing where I get it that they wanted Alex to have a love interest that was connected somehow with the Dragon Emperor, and they wanted to also have a Magi style character. They wanted another Ardith Bey because
he was invited back.
Yes, Oded Fehr, the actor, was invited back, and he didn't want to do it because Imhotep wasn't in the movie.
Yeah, it makes no sense for the Magi to be there if there's no Imhotep that they have to stop.
And Arnold Vosloo was like, why would I come back for the movie if it's not set in Egypt? That makes no sense for my character.
And that's when I found out in my readings that apparently they did want Imhotep to come back with the Dragon Emperor and be like, yo, I brought a friend back. Hi, Rick. Now try to take the two of us. And it's just like, no.
See, I heard a different one where it was they were not going to be able to defeat the Dragon Emperor, so they had to bring Imhotep back because they needed an ally who was just as powerful, and they were gonna like join forces. But I thought that would have been interesting because it's the whole thing where it's like in the first movie, Imhotep, pure bad guy. The second one, I feel sympathy for him when it's like, oh, Anck-su-namun leaves and betrays him. And if they brought it back in the third one, that would have been a thing where like I would have loved to see that arc completed of, oh, Imhotep now kind of understands his like universe and he could try and redeem himself. He's like, I did all this stuff for a love that was never true, and now he can try and redeem it.
I don't know. I think he is such a good baddie that I don't want him to be good. I like that he's bad.
You don't want him to be a little bit of an anti-hero?
No, I like, Imhotep the bad guy because he does it so well.
He does.
But the fact that they wanted them to be like a tag team, like, I got you, bro. I'm in.
It's
like, really?
Yeah, see, well, that's the thing, because that's the speculative writer stuff or the scripts they went through, because this went through a bunch of rewrites.
Yeah.
But what's actually going on in the movie is fine so far, right? Because up to this point, it's pretty by the numbers. It's a little goofy where the O'Connells are, but hey, they need a starting place so we can get some drama going. The Alex action stuff is cool. Lin is interesting as this, mysterious ninja. Yeah. But then when they're actually, the O'Connells are going to go to Hong Kong to deliver the Eye of Shangri-La.
Shangri-La, yeah.
The big-ass diamond.
I mean, it was pretty.
It was really pretty. And when we finally, they are going there, and we finally see what Jonathan's up to, and he is in the nightclub from Temple of Doom.
Called Imhotep.
And he has the whole, Egyptian-themed nightclub in China, which is, like, weird. I like seeing Jonathan. He's the kind of comedic relief I like.
He never changes. There's no character arc with him. They brought back that idea for the nightclub that they wanted in Mummy Returns, but they didn't have enough time or funding to do that. So it was interesting to see it in this movie, but I was just like, you just ripped off the club from Temple of Doom.
Like the whole, very heavily influenced, I won't... It's the kind of thing where it's like all the Mummy movies are little rip-offy of Indiana Jones. This one is just more really, like you said it explicitly in China, just like Temple of Doom. You're having him explicitly wear the white suit, just like Indian Temple of Doom. It's a little on the nose, but like I'm okay up to this point. It's when we finally have Alex and his parents meet, and they're having that whole chemistry, and now we find out Alex hates his parents, and that's
just so stupid.
Yeah, because he's like, oh, you never loved me. And I'm like, did you forget the whole second movie where he like literally crossed the world to save your life? Like,
ran you through the forest of pygmies and the cult people.
Literally outran the sunlight
to yeet you into the Scorpion King's temple to save you.
And then they have a whole argument. It's like, oh, he's like this because you called him too much, Evie. And she's like, well, you never supported his blah, 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 blah. And it's trying to do the thing where it's like, oh,
No.
they tried their best, but they weren't good parents. And I'm like, that's so
incorrect.
Dumb. Yeah, like that starts leaning into a drama thing that goes on and off for the entire movie. Sometimes Alex doesn't like them because, oh, you guys, never supported me and trying to follow in your footsteps. And sometimes he's like, man, you guys are the best parents I could ever ask for. And it flips on and off for the rest of the movie.
It's just
scene by scene, it stops caring.
It's so disingenuous of their characters. It's like, they're trying to write them as different people. And it's like, well, no, this isn't a conversation that Rick and Evie would have. Oh, you coddle them too much. Oh, you do this too much. It's like, no, that's not them.
Yeah.
It's not their dynamic.
Because the dynamic from, I guess, Returns, because that's the last movie where all three of these characters were involved. Not all three actors, but the three characters. Rick and Evie, very much in love. They love the adventuring life and the globetrotting life. Alex is involved, and he is very much into it. They all have this dynamic of, we're all adventure and globetrotters. We're all very much, a happy family. It's the Johnny Quest kind of thing. Where, Doc Quest and Johnny and Rick, they're all in on it. They are all loving what they're doing, and they all still love what they're doing. I don't know why I don't know where the rift came from, because they're like, oh, Rick wasn't nice enough?
Didn't give him enough hugs? I was like, really?
Like,
that's where we're gonna have this, family divide?
Yeah, like, if it was something serious, like, maybe, oh, like, you guys disappeared during the war to go do your espionage thing.
And you left me behind.
Yeah, and you that could have been the thing. Like, oh, you left me in a boarding school for 4 years while I, abroad, while you guys tried to save the world again.
I had no idea if you were dead or alive.
See, if they established that as the point of contention between them, then that would have made a little bit more sense. I could have given that to them.
But then again, with their characters, I really can't see them getting into the world of espionage.
You don't think so?
I feel like they still would have been explorers. I feel like they would have gone to different countries and got into different lore and to different, mummy situations. But it's like spies? Not really.
It's the fact that this is taking place in a post-World War II world. And they're like, we need to explain what the O'Connells were doing in England in World War II, and espionage is a very easy throwaway thing, even though it could have, even though I completely understand why they have to do it, and they have to set it here because they didn't want a teenaged Alex, they wanted an adult Alex. Even though it begs the question, what was Alex doing during World War II? Was he in espionage? Was he in a boarding school? Because he would have been old enough to fucking serve.
Why do the three of them look like siblings and not, parents and child?
Yes, that is another thing. And that's not a gripe against any of their acting abilities. No. It's just the actor playing Alex. I forget his name.
His name is Luke Ford.
Luke Ford. By the way, he does pretty good for what he's given.
Yeah.
He's not bad in this. He's serviceable, fine. The script's a little undercooked, but that's for everybody. He's doing a good job. But he looks probably 3-4 years older than the character he's supposed to play at 21. He looks 25, 26, And you have Brendan Fraser, who's probably about 39 here. About
somewhere in there, looking very good.
Very good. And it's like, oh, you guys look more like brothers, like older brother, younger brother, than father and son. And it's very awkward when they try and have that dynamic. And
then it's like I'm getting more supernatural, Sam and Dean kind of, bonding than father and son.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it takes you out of the movie when they try and get really sentimental about it. But Jesus Christ, we haven't even gotten to the Emperor Raising yet. Because
can we watch Supernatural?
I mean, it's 12 seasons, right?
I'm game.
I mean,
I'm game to watch it again.
I like Supernatural.
Me too.
Supernatural is one of those shows that every time I go back to it, I'm always like, yeah, no, I can just vibe on this for 8 seasons. It's super easy.
100 seasons.
It's a super easy vibe show, honestly.
I love it.
Yeah. You just don't want to talk about it.
I don't.
We're almost there, I swear.
All right. Let's get back to The Mummy 3.
For anyone who's wondering, this was your most dreaded episode of the year, right?
Well, Well, I mean, the year's not over yet, but yeah, it's up there.
When we started doing the schedule, and you're like, oh, Mummy franchise, we'll do Mummy Returns. And I'm like, and Tomb of the Dragon Emperor. And you're like, oh, fuck, we do have to do that one.
Yeah.
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 But don't worry, we're halfway through the movie.
Okay.
So.
Which also, this is the shortest movie of the franchise.
Yeah, it's the only one under 2 hours,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I think the first one was like 2:15?
2:15 or 2:30, somewhere in there, and then
Return.
or maybe it is like 2:15 because Returns I think is 2:30.
Yeah, because I think that's the thing. Returns is a little longer, but it feels way faster.
I think they should have made this longer to really flesh out, the history.
The globetrotting adventure thing. You want to spend time in these locations.
Yeah.
Explore, see what's going on, and it doesn't have that. But right now they're in Hong Kong. And this is when, they're going to deliver the diamond to the same place that the terracotta warriors are that Alex has just discovered. And surprise, surprise, there's a paramilitary cult that wants to raise the Dragon Emperor to conquer the world.
It's always a cult.
It's always a cult. And if so facto, they raise the Dragon Emperor, and it leads into the Emperor, the General, and his henchwoman, who has a very confusing moment much later on that we'll get to.
Yeah.
Yeah. They ride off on, granted, a fucking cool-ass chariot.
I will give you that. I did love the chariot and the horses, and you could just see the fire, brewing underneath the terracotta that the horses have.
Like, the CGI, a little spotty in some parts, but this is probably the best the CGI looks in the movie.
Yeah.
Honestly, because they're doing the chariot race through the streets of Hong Kong.
And it's Chinese New Year, so you've got a ton of people out in the street. You have fireworks going off, so there's just a lot going on in this chase scene.
Yeah, and I'm like, this is a really good, big, bombastic action chase scene. This is like, if in any movie, this is the centerpiece.
Mm-hmm.
And it is shot so awkwardly.
Yeah.
I lose place of where people are relative to each other. Sometimes the camera gets so shaky, like characters who are mid-sentence like pop out of the screen for like a second, and I'm like, wait, why didn't you get another take of this? Like, this seems really weird.
Was this choice?
It might have been choice to make you feel more like in the moment and that frenetic energy, but it's not great in concept, bad in execution.
Yeah.
I'd put it like that. But the scene itself, like, outside of, like, the momentary, like, lapses of judgment, goes on way too long.
Yeah.
This is what, because they're in Hong Kong probably, like, 30-ish minutes into the movie.
Yes.
And this chase sequence takes up maybe another 10 minutes.
Yeah, it goes on for a while, and you've got people going in different directions.
Like, all three little units have different plans of attack. You have the general, the Dragon Emperor, and his henchwoman. They're shooting those people behind him. Alex and Lynn are trying to crawl up on there and, like, disengage the Emperor.
She's trying to stab him through the heart.
Stab him through the heart with the mystical dagger that's going to get explained to us 15 times in this movie.
Yes.
And then you have Rick and Jonathan. They're shooting fireworks.
Evie drives.
Well, Evie drives, and Evie's like, oh, I got to know a shortcut, and we're doing this.
We're just going to drive through a wall.
Yeah, and I'm thinking, the other chase sequences we've had in the other movies, right? Because I know I keep harping on this, but this is the third movie of the trilogy. They're all kind of building off of one another and rhyming each other.
We have, the beautiful yellow car driving through the streets of Hamunaptra while the Imhotep zombies are chasing them. We have...
And that one, really well done. And you have And you have that one, super well done, really nice, really fast, frenetic, short and tight. 5 minutes maybe. You get a little bit of drama. It slows down a little bit, speeds back up. Slows down a little bit, speeds back up, and then ends with a nice, slow, dramatic moment. And then you have my favorite of the franchise, the double-decker bus chase.
Oh, I was gonna say the plane chase in The Mummy when they're trying to save Evie.
Oh,
and they're trying to outrun the sandstorm. The sandstorm.
Great scene, by the way.
Oh yeah, that's why it's like you have these great scenes. Then we have the double-decker bus. We have the race through the forest to get to the Scorpion King's temple.
Yeah, you have these great little chase sequences, but they all do the same thing and they all know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Frame the action so you can see everything. Because if my memory serves, for the most part, the camera's stopped. Like, this camera's locked down. It's, usually it's like on the hood of the car, or it's like inside the bus, but it's like locked down. You see everything.
Or they're on the same bed that the car is resting on.
Yeah.
And it's all moving in one unit together.
So you never lose geography.
No.
You're never missing what's going on. And the other thing is they're keeping the action tight. Like, it doesn't drag on for a long time. The action usually, a 5-minute chase sequence.
Mm-hmm.
And it might be a thing where if you put a stopwatch, maybe some of the chase sequences are pretty long. Maybe they are 10 minutes, but this one feels longer.
Yeah.
Because you don't get the geography. Your brain's working double time trying to figure out where everyone is, what's going on. And, I still kind of like it in concept, but, like, this is going to be the theme of the episode. Great concept, poor execution.
Oh, yeah, it could have been done a lot better.
But, the Dragon Emperor gets away.
Of course.
The general gets away. The henchwoman gets away.
Yeah.
Everyone's like, well, what can we do now? Save the world.
Just like every movie.
Just like every movie. Because they hop on a plane to Shangri-La.
Yes.
And, there's a little bit of romance, a little bit of drama on the mountain as they're hiking up to the temple.
Because they have to destroy the temple.
They have to destroy the temple so that the Dragon Emperor can't put the diamond up there that'll show him where the Fountain of Youth is, that will redeem him to full power.
Which is cool that, it's not the diamond itself that's actually going to do something for him. It's, a tool to help him find where the Fountain of Youth is. So I'm like, okay, that was a pretty cool concept.
Yeah, you get your artifact, and the artifact isn't the prize. The artifact is the thing that leads you to the prize. I'm like, okay, this is good, stringing us along, keeping us engaged in the adventure. And we also see the Dragon Emperor is a total badass. He has magic fire-breathing powers, and okay, he's a little bit more of a elevated threat than like Imhotep was.
Yeah.
More of an elevated threat of like the Scorpion King was. Okay, bigger, badder villain.
Yeah.
And then they get to the temple. They set up the traps. The general shows up with his henchmen.
And then we have, basically a pissing contest with Rick and Alex. My guns are bigger than your guns.
It's all about stamina, not firepower.
And it's
like,
my God.
Why are they doing dick jokes right now?
I don't know.
Dick jokes between in-character father and son.
Yeah, it was just, why?
This is, and a whole thing where Evelyn's like, Evelyn makes some sort of comment, and then Alex is like, oh, don't worry, Mom, I'm experienced. And she's like, what? You are?
Yeah, I was like, why does that need to be happening?
Yeah, it's one of those things where they're trying to be like, oh, we're going to put like little like innuendo jokes for the grown-ups in the audience. And I'm like, why though? Like, it's not relevant, and it makes it really awkward.
Oh, yeah.
But
because it's like, it's parents and their children. It's like, why are we talking about this? And it's just normal.
Yeah, and like, don't get me wrong, maybe some people have that kind of relationship with their parents, but it's like, it's super weird in this movie because, these movies are generally the first one was aimed probably at like teenagers or, whatever, teenagers, 20-year-olds. But the second movie, they had the cartoon show. It's aimed for kids.
It is. And that's why it's like, you're using this humor, and it's like, maybe if these three were like siblings, and they could be like, gross. I don't want to hear about, your life out of this, what you're doing. But it's like, these are parents and their child. It's like, yeah, still a little weird.
Don't want to be a prude, but it gives a very weird vibe to the scene, and it's also like just cringy dialogue.
Very cringy.
Yeah, that's probably the biggest sin, is the dialogue in these little moments are just, they just not very well written, and they just feel like cringy jokes trying to get like the whole, elbow and nudge to be like, hey, you know what they're talking about? I was like, yeah, I know what they're talking about, but I don't care.
Yeah.
But then, they're setting up their booby trap. They're going to try and, ambush the Emperor and, fight all the henchmen. And they call in the help of the Yetis.
Oh, God. Just when I thought, what else is going to happen in this movie, I wasn't expecting that.
You never think you're going to see a Yeti in a Mummy movie.
And then you get, what, like 4?
4 or 5. Also, Lynn speaks Yeti.
Yes.
That is established in this movie. And I'm in my head, I'm thinking, okay, they've seen mummies, they've seen
pygmies.
Pygmy mummies, they've seen giant scorpion men, they've seen people raised from the dead.
The army of Anubis.
But motherfucker, there's Yetis, and you're just like, oh, that's a funny Friday afternoon right there.
So, in the middle of the Matterhorn at Disneyland, is it not a basketball court and it's really Shangri-La?
Quite possibly.
Wow.
Quite possibly Shangri-La in the Matterhorn.
The more you know.
I suggest everyone, when the Matterhorn's taking off, you should jump out, start strolling around, see what you can find.
We do not recommend doing
Disney loves when you break their rules. They so won't kick you out. But
banned for life.
Banned for life. But it's the thing where they're having another big giant action scene, and you might be thinking, wow, you're really skipping from like action scene to action scene. No, like the movie's doing this. Like that whole thing where it's like, oh, they're on the mountain, you know, oh, cute romance thing, and oh, little bit of cringy dialogue between parents and son. Yeah, it's that scene. We're into this.
Yes.
The movie is jamming you along. And then this giant shootout, the Yetis, another 10-15 minute action scene where it's hard to figure out where everyone is in relation to each other, who's doing what. The Yetis don't look very good.
No, I mean, they look kind of like snow leopards. So that's what I was kind of like, well, no, that's a Yeti, but you really look like a leopard. So...
Well, I'm not even going with the whole design of them. I mean, like, the CG on them looks so plasticky and goofy.
Then it's like, why are you here, though? And then we find out in the next scene why. But it's just like, we're just, pulling whatever we can out of the ether to, let's fill up this movie.
Yeah, and it's like, I don't know why the whole Yeti thing is involved. I mean, because they have the big fight. Rick gets stabbed by the Dragon Emperor.
He sacrifices himself to save Alex.
Yes, and then you have the whole thing where, the Emperor is winning now. He is now at full power. And you have, Lynn's like, don't worry, I know somewhere we'll be able to heal your father. And they're going after the Fountain of Youth to save Rick because Last Crusade.
Yeah, you have to save Rick.
Yeah, because, look, you can't kill Brendan Fraser when him and John Hannah are the only ones from the original cast still carrying it on. You can't fucking do that. But I think they're trying to get the same, like, pre-climax battle thing like they did in Returns.
And then we see the Yetis carrying Rick on a stretcher to Shangri-La.
Okay, that is the funniest thing in the movie.
I was like, what is going
Did the Yetis build the stretcher? Do Yetis know how to build stretchers?
I hope so.
What is the Yeti culture like? Do they have hospitals?
I'd like to meet them. They seem like nice people, or nice creatures.
That I ask so many questions because it's like they're 8 feet tall, strength of 4 men at least, and
they protected them when the avalanche came. Yeah,
and they seem to understand English a little bit because they're just like, I guess we won't kill Jonathan. He seems to be a friend. It's very, very weird. Like the Yeti thing makes me realize. Yeah, no, this was aimed for, like, little kids.
Yeah, because, I mean, if we were going to do something like that, again, it goes back to the Mummy when Imhotep, awakens his soldiers.
Yeah, the pyramid guards, or the Pharaoh's guards.
And, they come out of, the etchings on the wall, and they're soldiers, really cool, so that's why I thought, we're in a temple, whatever maybe is, there as decoration. And if Lynn had called for help and it was those creatures in the temple that maybe came to life and protected them, like, okay, that would be cool. But Yetis? It's just like...
Weird that's where they're going for. I mean, I guess I get it. It's kind of related to, like, the regional culture of the Himalayas and all this other stuff. But it's also just really out of nowhere, right? I mean, it would have been more interesting if it was like, oh, or it's like, maybe there were monks there. Yeah. And like now they have to be roped in to help everything and or something. Just something that's not Yetis. Because Yetis are just weird.
Yeah, you have like this small branch of monks that are up there in the temple that, they don't come down. This is their home. But they know how to fight and protect themselves.
And also the other problem, like structurally, is this scene is pointless.
Yeah.
Like they go here so they can try and stop the Emperor from finding the Fountain of Youth.
Yeah.
And Rick gets stabbed, and we're gonna see, but Rick immediately gets healed.
Mm-hmm.
The Yetis never come up outside of this. The Dragon Emperor is victorious anyway. We don't lose anybody. No one dies.
No, and you have the sorceress explain that, because she is stabbed at the very beginning of the movie,
Mm-hmm.
but she lives, and she's, it was the Yetis that found her, impaled, and they carried her to the Fountain of Youth, and I guess that's when she decided, I will protect this, with my immortal life, so he doesn't come back. And so it's like, okay, so the Yetis protected you, and that's why it explains why they would protect your daughter, because, she is an extension of you, so they will take care of you guys, but yeah, it's just a little all over the place.
And that's the thing. This scene, you can cut it out and
Mhm.
totally fine. They could have landed in like the Himalayan mountains, done the hike, and then the next day just gone to the cave.
Yeah.
They could have skipped this entirely and the movie would not have noticed.
Mhm.
Like at all. But as you said, we meet the sorceress in the cave of eternal life. We meet Michelle Yeoh, Oscar-winning actress, playing opposite Oscar-winning actor
Brendan
Fraser.
Fraser.
And they won in the same year, and not for this movie.
Not for this movie,
Not
but
even close.
But for two great movies.
Yes. And I'm like, why are we saving Michelle Yeoh for like near the beginning, like Jet Li?
The very beginning and the very end.
Yeah, like Jet Li, and I'm like, she's a really good actress.
I know. I
and
feel like we should have gotten more of the sorceress.
yeah, it feels like she should have had more room to work with. Her and Lin should have served the like Oded Fair or
Mhm.
Ardith Bay roles as the protectors of the tomb. Like
You mean Ardith Bay?
Ardith Bay. Also, that's another thing. The cast not nearly as hot as the last two movies.
No.
Don't get me wrong, solid, but like solid 7s, 8s here. But like, God damn, there were 10s and 9s in the last movies.
That's why it's like, the sorceress, her daughter, both beautiful women. Alex, he's an attractive man, but it's just...
You're just like, none of them are Ardith Bay.
None of them are Ardith Bay.
Not a one. Oded Fair, good looking man.
Very good looking man.
You're gonna put this episode out, and Oda and I was about to say Oded Fair is gonna probably hit us up and be like, look, I understand my effect on women. Can you please calm down?
I can't. I never will.
But we get the whole thing where we finally see the sorceress, and she is like, I've been protecting the Fountain of Youth, and yada yada yada.
We see the Fountain of Youth. We see what Shangri-La really is, and it's this beautiful,
paradise and
Yeah.
all this. It's a thing of myth. It's supposed to be the perfect realm, and Jonathan says the only thing that can make this place better, a casino. Because Jonathan doesn't learn anything.
Doesn't learn shit.
Also, really underutilizing Jonathan's comedic talents here. Really underutilizing it.
Yeah, it's very slapsticky.
That's, I think, the issue. The comedy here is way more cartoony.
Mm-hmm.
But neither here nor there, because the Emperor shows up.
And gets himself immortal.
Immediately.
Yes.
It was not even an issue. Just
No.
kind of walked in and did it.
Set the sorceress flying, sent her daughter flying. Yeeted Alex across the room.
Try and lit Rick on fire.
And then just, walked in, bathed in the water, and then he was like, okay, cool, I'm going to turn myself into a dragon. Deuces.
Also, turned into actual dragon. And just flew off.
Yeah. With Lin.
Actual dragon in this movie.
And I was
what
like,
the fuck?
And I was like, okay, it's Game of Thrones now.
You'd love to see it. But this...
Not the last few seasons.
Oh, God. Because it was season 6 that went off the books.
I don't remember.
Oh, God, I can't remember if it's like 5 or 6, but when it went off the books, that's when Game of Thrones started getting like really shoddy.
Yeah.
Personally, I think like season 7 on, like, because it was 8 seasons total, right?
I think so. I don't know.
Yeah,
it's been a while since I've watched it.
I know, like 8 was just complete disappointment. 7 was the downtrend, but there's still some stuff in season 6 that I still enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
Some, but that's neither here nor there, because we're finally there, Boo. We're finally there, Becky.
We are, and then
the climax.
And then it turns into Jason and the Argonauts.
Yes,
which I love. I mean, great movie. I love skeletons in general.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we get the general as a skeleton, which was pretty cool.
We do love to see it. The general that betrayed the Dragon Emperor in the prologue.
Yes.
Because, now it's going to be the general's, terracotta army versus the undead builders of his great wall that he, persecuted.
And it's like you have the sorceress that is giving up her immortality so that the soldiers can come back and, fight one last time against the Emperor.
And hopefully buy them enough time to be able to vanquish the Emperor and save the day. And we get another big bombastic action sequence that goes on for... Actually, this one goes on like probably the right amount of time for your climactic battle scene. But
I was so mad that the sorceress and the general didn't get, a real goodbye.
Oh, God.
I thought, okay, we're going to have this. She's mortal now. He's, only here to fight this battle. They're going to actually, be able to be reunited again. Nope.
No, yeah, you don't get the whole, like, oh, you were in love in the prologue and you're going to finally be together in
the afterlife.
In the afterlife. You don't get that. You also have the issue where you have Michelle Yeoh and Jet Li. Mm-hmm. Both of them do fantastic work in the martial arts genre.
That was a great fight.
It was a great fight, but it's shot in slow motion, in really janky mediums.
Yep.
And it cuts way too much, and you cannot appreciate how good these performers are.
No.
And it's like, really, this is what you're doing. Mm-hmm. You could just had them figure it out themselves on the day and just plant it in a wide, and you would have been fine.
It's like the rest of the battle that's going on isn't in slow motion.
Yeah.
It's like, we don't need to slow down that scene. If anything, we want more of that scene.
I really wish they did the whole, fucking crouching tiger, hidden dragon thing and just put the wireworks on, just like, okay, they're gonna like fly across the fucking thing and do like Dragon Ball Z fighting.
No, it's just, I just want to see, yes, we've had this with these undead armies before. We know the formula. This we have, two actual people that are going hand-to-hand combat, and it's in a different style of just, punching each other. I'm like, no, these are actually trained fighters. Like, I want to see this fight.
Yes, I'm like, oh, Dragon Emperor, it's taking place in China, it's doing this, it's doing that, and I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna get some sick, like, martial arts Hong Kong action going on.
Especially with Jet Li.
Yeah, you fucking Jet Li, because this is, like, 2008. Jet Li is, I think at this point, probably, like, the biggest Asian action star outside of, like, Jackie Chan.
Yeah.
At least in this era. Like, where's his due here? Like, because he's in the movie for the prologue, which is probably about 15-ish minutes, and the climax where we actually get to see him. And everything else is CG'd.
It's CG, it's dispersed, it's him, as this cursed terracotta emperor where, the terracotta keeps, reforming and he breaks through it and we see him mummified, but then it just keeps filling back up again.
And that's probably some stuntman in a green bodysuit. It's not actually Jet Li. He's probably just doing the voiceover. But the other thing is, he barely talks.
Yeah.
There's no real, like, don't get me wrong, Jet Li, very good actor, great performer. Why did you get Jet Li if he couldn't be there for the whole movie? Like, I get it. You wanted a, like, strong leading man to play the part of the Dragon Emperor. You should have looked for somebody who could have been there for the entire production.
That would have been like, having Arnold Vosloo in The Mummy and him not being able to be there for most of the shoot, the entire shoot, and then it's just, okay, we'll just have kind of like, glimpses of him. It's like, no, we want to see our villain.
And even then, in the first Mummy, they're able to play that out pretty well, because you think about it, Arnold Vosloo, he's in a lot of the movie, but a lot of it he's shrouded in shadows. Maybe he's wearing the mask, maybe it's like partial CG, maybe it's full CG, but it's like they're able to play it out, so it's like, oh, we're getting little glimpses of who he's turning into.
He's regenerating.
He's regenerating. With this, it goes from full CGI dude to Jet Li.
Yeah.
And that's it. It's one of those things where it's like, I kind of get what you're going for, but it's, again, interesting idea, bad execution.
Yeah.
But, the whole fight sequence is, again, big, bombastic, all over the place. Jonathan is in a plane. He's dropping bombs, shooting. We have Rick, who finally confronts the Dragon Emperor, and him and Alex are trying to do the tag team on him. Evie and
Lynn.
Lynn, they're trying to hold off the armies and try and, keep safe.
And, take care of the general and
the scarred henchwoman who has no name, I think.
They dropped a bomb on their car.
Yes.
Directly on their car. And somehow they were magically thrown into the temple and were still ready to fight.
Also, there's the whole wheel because for some reason they're fighting a clock tower now. I don't know why. And the
yeah, there's just a series of wheels, and I mean, I know it's wheel wells for water. That's what those wheels are there for, but it's just
why are you? There's so many gears.
There's a lot, and then finally the general gets thrown into one of them, and
he's getting crushed up. He's like, "No, save yourself!" And she's like, "Oh, we'll never leave you." And I'm like, "You were what? What the?"
Yeah.
I'm like, was this supposed to be a thing? Like the henchwoman was in love with her? Was that or in love with him? Was that a thing?
I mean, they never showed any, glimpse of that up until this moment. It's like, oh, I just thought, that was like your work partner.
Also, I'm like, they had one scene alone together, and it was all business of, we're going to raise the Dragon Emperor to save China. And she's like, yes, sir. That is it. That is it. And she's like, I will die for you.
It's like, are they trying to correct, Anaxuna Moon, where, she left Imhotep in the last movie, and this one she's like, no, I'll just die with you.
This feels like somebody cut some shit out. Like, this feels like a studio thing where the movie was probably like 2.5, and they're like, we need to get this down to 2 so it'll play more. This feels like they were cutting scenes out. This feels like there was a whole like subplot where they were like in love or something, and it's just out of the fucking movie. That's what that feels like. And it is the dumbest decision. Like, why? Just film a little bit more fight scene and kill her on her own or something. Or just don't have her come back from the dead.
Or, prove that this isn't a cartoon and, oh, the car got hit by a bomb, but they magically flew and landed it, somewhere, and they're completely okay. They're not singed, nothing. They're fine.
Oh, God. It's one of those things where, like, all the Mummy movies are a little cartoony in their own way, but at least you believe the action on screen. When
just
somebody
like the Divide and Conquer.
Oh, Lord.
When I saw that, I was like, you gotta be kidding me.
That was rough, because what is it? Like the sacred dagger has been split in half, and Rick gets thrown over, and he sees in the dust a part of the dagger. The other part of the dagger is missing, but for some reason, Alex has decided to draw a little division sign, which at first I thought was a dick.
Really?
Because I'm watching this, and I'm just kind of like, I'm watching the movie, but I'm like barely involved at this point, because I'm like, fuck, how long is this movie? And then it goes over to that, and I'm looking at it, I'm like, is that a dick and balls? No, like the balls are in the wrong. Oh, division sign. Oh, okay. Because it's just drawn in the sand.
And it's like, are you trying to go back to Alex in Returns, where he would give, clues by creating these epic sandcastles, and it's just, in this one, a division symbol? Like, really? This is, kind of lagging for Alex.
I know, right? It's one of those things where I'm like, I get it. Like, I get it. I get it. It's trying to be a thing, but it's so fucking dumb. But they manage to touch the touch tips as it were with with both sides of the dagger
at the same time
through the Dragon Emperor's heart. It's okay. So Alex stabs the Emperor in the back, Rick stabs him in the front, and the blades connect together. And then when Rick pulls the dagger out, it's now a combined dagger, being like, see guys, the father and son were separated now, and now they're back together. Family unity. Fuck off, movie. And they save the day. The Emperor dies. The Terracotta Army falls. The undead builders are like, see ya, and die.
You think, Lynn's gonna be able to meet her father.
I thought that's what we were getting.
I'm like, oh my god, she's finally gonna meet him. She gets like a head nod and then disappears. I was like, what?
He's like, hey, you look kind of like my grandmother. See ya. And just done. That's it. Like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
It's, the fighting and the action and all that stuff is fun. It still suffers from the problems of the other one, where it's like, okay, you're doing a little bit of shaky cam, but it's like, really exaggerated, and there's one where John Hannah just straight up falls out of frame and it holds for like 5 seconds.
Yeah.
And that's not like thing he drops out of frame and then he comes back in. It's like, no, the camera's shaking so much it pulls out of focus and out of frame, and then he kind of bounces back in eventually. And I'm like, that is horrible execution of an action shot. Like, a little shake is fine for freneticism, like, but in Saving Private Ryan, when Spielberg's doing the fucking like storming Normandy Beach, yeah, he still maintains focus on people. You still know where Tom Hanks is. Like, what the fuck, guys? But besides the point, it is a nice, fun, big, bombastic action sequence. But then we finally get the wrap-up, the ending. Lynn and Alex, they're in love now. Rick and Evie
She's mortal now.
She's mortal now. I think it's going to be interesting to see what that whole life is like when she's 2,000 years old and he's like 22.
And you got Alex, told you I love an older woman. It's like, Alex, shut up.
Shut the fuck up, Alex. And then we have, Rick and Evie, and they're like, we're back in it. We're going to be adventurers. I finally got my idea for my new book. It's going to be the Dragon Emperor. I'm like, yeah, okay, whatever. And then Jonathan's like, I've sold my club. I'm going to go somewhere where there's no mummies. Probably Peru. And then we get the ending little title card. Shortly after this, mummies were found in Peru. End of movie.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is that sequel bait, or was that meant to be a joke?
No, that was sequel bait because there was a 4 that was planned, and the actors did sign on.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
But they weren't sure how they were going to fix, him. He was going to Panama or Peru?
Peru. He's going to go Peru.
Okay, so, yeah, they have the teaser there. But for 4, what they had planned on was they were going to deal with the Aztecs. And they're like, well, how are we going to fix this since we had already just teased Peru? 2 very different countries.
Who are kind of far, like where the Aztecs were and where Peru is, I believe are kind of far from each other.
Different countries, different lore. And they did have their villain signed on, and it was going to be Antonio Banderas.
Honestly, pretty solid.
And I was like, okay, that might be unique. Not because, I'm Hispanic and I'm like, fuck yeah, Aztecs, let's go. But at the same time, I'm like, I don't know. I don't think Rachel Weisz is going to come back for 4.
And Maria, I believe it's Maria Bellows who plays her in this. Yeah, Maria Bellows. Good enough Evie, honestly. Like, the chemistry wasn't all there for it, but I
think she could have been her own character.
You think she should have just stepped in as her own character. Yeah. Recasting Rachel Weisz in the 3rd movie was a poor decision.
Yeah. I mean, I know most of it was she didn't want to come back because she read the script, just like Oded Fehr and Arnold Vosloo, and they were like, wow, this is horrible. But at the same time, she was kind of like, it's not going to make sense coming back, and my child is pretty much the same age that I am.
Yeah, because also the other thing, I know she had a kid around the same time.
Around the same time, yeah.
And it's a thing where she's like, well, that didn't affect my decision. It was just the script being bad. But it's a thing where the producers were also like, well, yeah, but in the meetings you said that was the reason. Like, if you were trying to be nice or not, that's one thing.
That, but, and the actors, I mean, Brendan Fraser especially, take a beating with these movies.
Yeah.
So it's like, the first movie, they had to have, what was it, hostage insurance?
Yeah.
For the 3 leads.
Well, I mean, the first movie, Brendan Fraser was literally hung. The scene in the jail? Yeah, there was a mistake. He literally hung and died on set, and they revived him.
Yeah, so it's like, I can totally see her apprehension of coming back because, these aren't easy movies. These are,
rough and tumble.
Rough and tumble on screen. And it's like, no, we really had to get rough and tumble to make it look, as real as possible on screen.
The other big glaring reason why... This is why I know Arnold Vosloo just like straight up said, no, I'm not coming back. Well, Steven Sommers wasn't coming back as a director. He for this movie, he is only the producer. The director, I believe, is the same director for the first Fast and the Furious movie.
It's Rob Cohen.
Yeah, Rob Cohen. And the whole thing with that is, like, Steven Sommers, like, we can be honest, he's not a master director. He's not, Scorsese or Kubrick, but he knows how to make fun, bombastic, pulpy adventure stuff.
Yeah.
Like the Mummy Returns, Van Helsing, Like, people give shit to Van Helsing all the time.
I like Van Helsing.
I like it too. It's one of those movies where it's full of really cool ideas.
It was a scary ass maze when it was at Universal Studios.
Yeah, God, I remember that maze. That was a while ago. But neither here nor there. But the thing is like his directing style. He's probably one of those guys who's like, it's gonna be a lot of work, but hey, it's gonna be fucking cool.
But I mean, Rob Cohen was the one that was really interested in ancient China, and it was like, okay, if this is your thing, and a lot of shooting was done in China because he wanted to do a lot of on location,
and also he was apparently super anal about trying to get as much of it accurate as possible.
It's like, I feel like we should have embraced more of that. It feels like, okay, we have the Dragon Emperor, we're in China, but we only get like little glimpses here and there. It's like, no, why aren't we, in these cities more? Why aren't we, learning more about, the history and the culture and the lore? It's just,
it's a
Yeti.
thing. It's a, yeah, Yeti. It's a thing where this feels like, have you ever had this where maybe a friend or somebody is describing something they're really into, mm-hmm. and they're trying to get you involved with it,
yeah.
and you're going along, but you're like, I'm trying, I'm just not really digging it, but I'm gonna put up with it because, you're my friend.
Yeah.
This feels like the actors and everyone are like, man, you're really into this, but the script's not that good, but I'll give it my best. That's what it feels like, because the chemistry is off, mm-hmm. And I'm not blaming Maria Bello. She does a fine job as the actress.
Yeah.
It's the thing where it's like, it's a different dynamic mm-hmm. than the first two. It feels like Jonathan isn't used perfectly. He's a lot more of like slapsticky comedic relief one-liner gag character, a lot more than in the other two, where he was that, but he served the plot.
Yeah. He
did contribute to what was going on. He was important. And it's the thing where Alex is very involved, but it feels like this was setting up, he's going to carry the torch for the next couple
mm-hmm.
movies, like they did with Kingdom of the Crystal Skull, where they tried to say, Harrison Ford's getting on in years, so his son, Shia LaBeouf, is going to carry on.
Mutt's going to take on.
Yeah, he's going to carry on the torch, which they threw that shit out the fucking window. Yep. So that's the thing. Tomb of the Dragon Emperor is the worst parts of the Indiana Jones franchise.
Also, the score was not bussin'.
Oh, it was not. The score was forgettable. Yeah,
and it's like you had these sequences in the score where you could hear like the Mummy theme, mm-hmm. like it was about to pop off, and it's like, we should have had the love theme at least for Rick and Evie, so we can kind of, we're having one of those moments or a memory.
It also, I think it bridges the gap, for the auditory audience, the people who are like into the music, mm-hmm. or because music hits that emotional beat, it bridges the gap from the other movies.
And it's like,
there's a reason John Williams does all the Star Wars movies.
Oh yeah, and it's like, we have this new bad guy, we have the Dragon Emperor. Why doesn't he have an epic bad guy theme?
Where's his Imperial March?
Yeah, it's like, when he enters a scene, it's like we should be flooded with, this music that, he is here, this is him. And it's like, no.
It's so weird, the decisions made on the movie when they had so much more time than the other ones.
Yeah, there was more potential. They really could have fleshed out this story better. Do it in a way that you could have brought, Rachel Weisz back. Why not make Alex a teenager?
I'm also of the opinion where it's like because for some reason they have this obsession, we're going to set each movie like
10 years
apart, 5 years apart, just a different decade. I'm like, no, you shouldn't have done that. Mm-hmm. Like, I had my gripes with it in Mummy Returns, and we did our concession where, no, they had to do it because they had to
mm-hmm.
appeal to the kids, and it's also a thing where they needed to change the dynamic somehow.
They didn't want to deal with a baby.
Yeah, and again, I think it's far more they needed to change how the unit worked.
Yeah.
Because they needed there to be somebody else in that, in the group dynamic to have the O'Connells evolve.
Yeah.
In this, it really should have been like Alex is a teenager. It should have opened. I don't know. I could just rattle on where it's like the movie just doesn't feel right.
It doesn't.
It feels like instead of the third of a franchise, this feels like the 5th movie of a long-running franchise where the last 2 went direct to TV.
Yeah.
Or direct to DVD, I guess, or streaming.
Yeah, and, to go back to the 4th that,
Could have been.
That could have been and was signed on. Actors were signed on to it. They were ready to go. You want to know why it wasn't made?
Was it because this movie shit the bed critically and commercially?
No, it was because a little movie we're going to talk about next week was concocted, and they decided to shelve that movie for Tom Cruise.
Oh, sweet Jesus.
Because they thought that Tom Cruise was going to bring to life the Dark Universe in The Mummy.
That's right. That came out in 2016 or 2018?
It was in the teens. I think it was maybe around 16.
Yeah, because was it 2008? That's when you have Iron Man and they're doing the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and this is where the rumblings that Universal wants to do a dark universe.
This is also around the same time that we get the Wolfman with Benicio del Toro, which was really good.
That's right.
And it was like, why can't we do the Universal monsters scarier?
And also, they, Steven Sommers did Van Helsing, which was threw together. It's like, hey, all these, monsters can work in one movie. So there was definitely a rumble of the dark universe, but
and then we know what happened with the Tom Cruise mummy killing the dark universe.
Oh God, we've touched on that. I don't know, a half dozen times in this podcast this year. It keeps coming back to it.
It does. So I think we have to actually talk about it and bring it to light.
I think we do. But before we do, any final thoughts on The Mummy, Tomb of the Dragon Emperor? Was it as bad as you thought it would be?
Yeah, it was pretty bad.
It was pretty bad?
It was pretty bad. I mean, I don't throw it onto the actors because I think the actors did great jobs. No one was, slacking.
Yeah. But
it was just, the story was really not good. I think, for as much of a gap that there was between Returns and Tomb of the Dragon Emperor, I think there was plenty of time to flesh out a very strong story. But, yeah, I mean, the only way I'm going to recommend this is if you want to watch, all the Mummy movies, then
you bought the Mummy 3-pack on DVD and you're like, I got to do the marathon.
Or you bought, the collector's edition that has, the Scorpion King attached to it. Yeah, burn through all of them and be prepared for 3, but yeah, I really didn't like the movie.
I'm in the same boat as you. It's the worst in the franchise. I'm pretty sure it's easily the worst in the franchise.
Mm-hmm. Which is disappointing.
Yeah, and I mean, even if you're counting the first Scorpion King movie, even that movie I'm more entertained by.
Yeah, I feel like the Scorpion King's a better movie than this movie.
Which is wild to say.
Oh yeah.
But we are going to be talking next week to wrap up the Mummy franchise proper, I guess, with the Tom Cruise Mummy film. That's was supposed to launch the Dark Universe. Oh yeah, you've seen it?
I've seen it. I know you haven't seen it.
I did not see it for not good reason, but lazy reasons. It was coming out, I think, at a time where I just wasn't able to go to the movies very often. Mm-hmm. And also I saw the trailer that got released that they didn't have the audio mixed in, and I was like, this is really shoddy. I'm not down.
Yeah.
But do you think it'll top Dragon Emperor?
I've only seen it the once. I found it more entertaining than this, but I think that Tom Cruise's Mummy is a different beast than this is. So be prepared.
And the real crux is we get to say, so what killed the Dark Universe?
Oh, I know. I know what killed it.
But if people wanted to find out, where can they go next week to find us?
If you want to listen to us on a different platform than you currently are, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and YouTube. You
can go to our YouTube channel, The Film Vault. That is The Film Vault on YouTube. Eventually, Dean will get off his ass and edit some slideshow video versions of this podcast so you can keep up with it. But if you wanted to know when we're uploading or where we're doing, or what we're doing, or where we're going, you can follow us on our socials at
The Film Club Podcast on Instagram, where we post daily stories, upcoming episodes, and random adventures we're going on.
And with that,
we'll see you next week at The Film Club.
Have a good week, everybody.